Welcome everybody today to another edition of the worldwide phenomenon that is taking over certain parts of Toronto West and west of West Wallsend. It's Awabakal, the podcast that brings the most interesting people in all of Newcastle. And today I have a guest. If I step out of line, I'm sure he will blow his whistle. From having his roof blown off by lightning to dealing and mediating with people who just want to argue for the sake of it, to now educating in a stronger and smarter way. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, don't argue back with the man with the whistle, the one and only, go for 10, Ken Weatherall. How are you, my brother?
Yeah, I'm good, brother. How are you?
Good. Did you like that?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Took a few takes, but I got there.
Pretty exciting. Eh? It seemed like you're under a lot of pressure.
I'll put myself. I don't know why I try to be fast too. Try to be creative.
Yeah.
But
No, I like it. I've never had an introduction like that before.
And you never will.
Never will
until
again.
You have me again.
Yeah, exactly.
The lightning part.
Yeah.
That was true, wasn't it?
That was true, yeah, absolutely. I remember I was at work one day at one of the local primary schools, and I got a phone call from my sister who rang up, and when I answered the phone, she was in tears, and she just said, "The house is on fire." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "The house is on fire. Get home quick." So I rushed outside. It was pouring down rain, and I drove home really quickly, and as I'm driving close to Cameron Park where we live, I see all the smoke, the thick smoke in the air. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going on? And the whole house got burnt. So the lightning actually struck the power box on the side of the house, and just destroyed the whole house within minutes. And it was very lucky that at the time none of the kids and stuff was home. They were all still at school or just on their way home from school.
Struck the power box.
Struck the power box, yeah. And the neighbour who was near his window at the time said he was just looking at the window at the same time, and he actually saw it hit the power box, and I can see the energy coming right along the side of the house as it hit and as it spread. It was pretty devastating, very heart-wrenching sort of moment, and just awful feeling. And it was something you'd never want to experience again. That's for sure.
Because I'm sure, I'm sure I was watching the news that night. And saw you there. Something I was thinking.
Yeah.
But then you couldn't rewind the TV like the digital box, but
not back in those days. Nah. Yeah, but since the fire though, we had a lot of support from people in the community and people in the referee association that I'm involved with. Yeah, they've been very supportive and helped us out a lot, and supported us as best they can. And we got through it in the end, but it was a really tough period for our family,
Now today I've asked you because, as I said, I like to, for the Awabakal pod, get the most interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
And we go way back, and we actually worked together for a little bit there. And you put something on social media the other day, and I thought, there's a man I need to have a chat with and catch up with. He lives such an interesting life. But before we get into that, you're not from Newcastle. Where are you from? So tell me where you're from, your family, and when did you come to Newcastle?
Yeah, so we actually come from Muruwari.
More Bree people.
Yeah, more Bree people. We've got a lot of Bree people down here. It's so funny, when we moved here, we thought we were getting away from a lot of people in Mobley, and we come here and we find out nearly half the town's from Bree or Dubbo and Walgett and those sort of places. So it's still really nice. But we moved down. We actually came down at Christmas holidays in the end of 94, I think it was.
I reckon it would have been.
And just to visit my auntie who was living down here with her boyfriend at the time. So we came down for Christmas holidays, and we liked it, so we ended up staying.
Oh.
And so that was obviously 95. And so we've stayed. We've been here ever since. But the girls have, a couple of times my sisters have moved back home here and there because they tend to fret a bit and they really miss home and the country life. And but I've stayed here the whole time, and I often think, what would be happen now if I had stayed in Bree and grew up in Bree? What would I be doing now? And it would have been very interesting to see what happened compared to what I'm doing now, and been lucky to be able to do as a result of moving here and staying here, finishing high school, and doing what I do now. Yeah.
Can I ask you this, if you want to answer it? But like being dark skinned and coming from Bree and a small community and that, and then coming here to a bigger town. And go, because you would have been still in high school, yeah?
Yeah, I was year 9, yeah.
Was there much of a transition? Like, did you find the culture, or did you find it different much?
Oh, very different, very difficult. Very difficult. When you're going to a place, a community, and a school in particular where, was nearly 100% Aboriginal people, and you knew everybody, and you're practically related to everyone. So it was very difficult to come to a place where you hardly know anybody, and let alone trying to find your way in the community was really hard because we didn't know a lot of people. But we were blessed that Auntie Selena, Archibald, and Uncle Doug, they were one of the very first families we met when we lived, because they lived in Cardiff and we lived in Cardiff. And we met and we've been close friends ever since. They're like family to us. But it took a long time to get used to it. I know probably for about probably nearly 2 years and stuff, we were fretting to constantly want to go home to Bree and, just be back with the family and the mob and, because we're just really country kids at heart. So it was really difficult and, because you don't really, like, it's not prominent in Newcastle community as much as the country towns, the Aboriginal community is not visible enough, I guess. And you don't sort of see that as much. So it was very difficult to find out, where to go and connect with other Aboriginal people in the community, particularly when we didn't know a lot of people in the community. So I think one of the things that helped us a bit was once we sort of get to find our way, we started to go on some community events and stuff that we knew about, and particularly the NAIDOC events, and that way really helped us. And being still at high school, Cardiff High School had a pretty good reputation with Aboriginal kids and stuff like that, and with a lot of kids that come from out country, at bush, going to Cardiff High School through the hostel and places. So we were lucky enough to sort of be a part of that sort of community.
Did they have a liaison officer at that time?
AEO at the school? They did. Annie Dorney Gibbs. She was the she was still the AEO when I started high school, but we had a couple throughout my period in high school, so I was there for about 4 years, and we went through about 3 or 4 different AEOs. So when she retired, a couple of other people come on board, and
does that help?
Yeah, big difference. Big difference. Having an Aboriginal presence in the school, and obviously someone from Abri as well. And her mob and community. So exactly. So it really helped, and it was great just to have her guidance and her support, and and a lot of the kids that I went to school with, young Ray Kelly and I were in the same class at school, and a lot of the Douglas boys and Kelly and things like that. So, but we're all still pretty close friends now, and have been,
Was Wok in your... Was he before?
No, Wok was in my sister's year above me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Wok and, and Abby was a couple of years above me. So, it was really good though. So now we're all, still friends after all these years, which has been nice. Yeah.
Jump forward. First career-wise that I've known you, it was only because I jumped in that field also. Department of Education. I was at Toronto High and used to get to see you a lot back then. Tracy Walpole, our mate. How did you get into that?
So when I first left high school, I did about a year or so at Yarnteen CDEP.
Jeez, that's going back.
Yeah, going back a while, and I did about a year there, doing some labouring and stuff, and that was really interesting, really nice as well. But I knew that wasn't me, I'm not that sort of bloke that I'm any physical labour or anything like that, I'm hopeless at it. So, and I've kind of had an interest in education in some way. I was thinking about maybe I could become a teacher and things like that. So as it turned out, Auntie Donna Meehan was the Aboriginal Community Liaison Officer in the department at the time. And she rang us up and said that they were looking for an Aboriginal worker to come and basically support a young Aboriginal student who was, disengaged and having some behaviour issues in school, in Hillsborough Public School. And asked, are you interested? And I said, yeah, great. Yeah, it sounds like a bit of fun. So I was doing, went over there, worked because I did it like 2 or 3 days a week over at the school, and then I, did the other days on Centrelink and stuff like that. So and that's how I got started. And so ever since then, though, I'd done a lot of positions. I've been, a teacher's aide, AEW, Aboriginal Education Officer. I was an Aboriginal community mentor. I was an AEO. Actually, privileged to go back to Cardiff High as the AEO for a period of time, and then I went from the AEO at Cardiff, then went into the Aboriginal Community Liaison Officer's position, which was in the department, in regional office in Adamstown.
Yes.
So I was there. That was the last position I held in the department. I held that for nearly 8 years, and it was exciting. There was a lot of great opportunities for me personally but I guess it sort of, kept my interest in education, but not actually having to be a teacher, and not actually having to, deal with all the pressures that teachers deal with, but still be involved in the exciting stuff that kids happens.
Because myself being at Toronto High, working more with you, what were some of the main issues you would find as the overall liaison officer?
I think
some of the things you were really called in to deal with.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like the ACLO role, particularly back then, obviously it's changed a little bit these days with government changes and things like that. But back in those days, the job was very broad, and that was what I really liked about the job is, you could be dealing with some issues around suspensions. Particularly some schools that were continuously high suspension of Indigenous students. But one of the big issues was around student engagement, and trying to get kids engaged in school, in education, in their learning. It's really tough because it's a really difficult westernised system that doesn't really cater for the needs of Aboriginal kids. All the data still tells us that.
Yeah.
And, it's problematic that we continue as a system to do the same things over and over and not really do anything, not really change anything, and expecting a different result. And I think that's a bit of a problem. But also schools tend to have a bit of an issues trying to engage fully with the Aboriginal communities.
Yep.
Trying to get parents involved, and particularly in a good light, when they're doing good things around the school. That's always been a bit of an issue. And but also trying to reach out into the broader Aboriginal community.
I remember once you tell me a story where you also got called into, that's in that heading that I had for you, the intro, a mediator. You had to go, was it a few times you had to go to different schools, parents, teachers, and everyone's protective over their kids, but were there times when you got called in where you had to mediate, where you felt like, okay, either the parent is just blatantly, look, let me explain the system to you, or was there times when you looked at the staff, the non-Aboriginal people, and going, okay, hang on, there's something fishy going on here? Did you ever come across things like that?
Yeah, for sure. You're sort of like a meat and the sandwich, in that position as the ACLO, because you're employed by the department, and supporting schools to achieve their goals, but fundamentally at heart, you're an Aboriginal person, an Aboriginal person as part of the community, so you want to do your best for the community. So it's really difficult sometimes. Sometimes you had to have hard conversations with both sides. To say to the parents, I understand where you're coming from, I know exactly what you're talking about, but that's just not the way the system works. It's not the way the process goes.
Did you find it harder sometimes talking to the black families than it was to the...
I don't know if I found it hard, but I found it interesting, because some of our mob are just so determined and so flat out, and it doesn't matter what the system says or what the process is, and they're just, and I feel for them, I really do, but unfortunately the system didn't allow us to be able to, sometimes get what they want out of it, and another way too, when you're talking to the systems people, I found it harder to talk to schools and school leaders around what they're not doing wrong, what they're not doing right, to help our kids, because, I don't know why it was easy. I guess it was just, maybe they're professionally, trained and things like that they can handle those complex situations and difficult conversations a bit better. So, it wasn't as interesting as my conversation with the parents, but it was still important, but it was always hard. And I think it's fair to say that in all my yarns with the parents and with the schools and stuff with those difficult, complex situations, I think it's fair to say that both sides wanted the same result in the end. The best for the kids, and best for the students and
Yeah.
outcomes. So I don't think it blew up too much.
Yeah.
I think we've always managed to find, a solution that we think could possibly work. Yeah.
Over that 8 years, any funny things that you had to step into?
Oh, no, not really. Well, no, nothing really funny, I don't think.
There's always a funny side to things, but we'll have to come back maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't. Yeah, it was just constant though. Like the job was just very constant. It was a 24-hour job. I used to get phone calls from people, in the evenings while I'm at home, and if I go out to a community event and things like that, then I'm always talking to people on the side and in car parks and stuff, because they always want, because they need people, they need to be able to tell us what's on their mind, and sometimes that was the best place. So I really struggled with that for a while, because I never really got time alone, or my time, and because I'm always got parents and Aboriginal people talking to me about their issues. So and I felt it was important that I respect that, and that I listen to them, and give them the time to do that.
But you're right on what you're saying, just that last bit there, because there'd be times when I'd be in the the principal's office, even with parents and the student, and you'd be there, asking the questions, and the questions you felt like that needed to be asked on behalf of the parents. But it was always after, when you got out into the car park, or if you walked them up, then they would just unleash. And you think, why didn't it, But I mean, and that's when, you'd think, okay, now you've given me the full story. And I understand what you're saying. And then it's like, you got to go back into the school and go, well, look, they've just told me this. And
you're a very important link, as the Aboriginal Community Liaison Officer between the schools and the department. But there's just not enough of them, and I think that's what every school needs, a person like that, to be an important link, between what's happening in the school and the parents, for a whole lot of reasons, and even more so today, compared to when I was starting out, because the issues are just so complex.
What do you what was I going to say? So going back to the education, still with the education, what do you think today's biggest issues would be for, like, AOs or Aboriginal workers and liaison officers?
Well, I think a lot of the issues are still the same, but they're just like, just a lot more of them, engagement is such a big problem. Like, while the schools or the department has come up with some programs that try to be flexible in how they teach kids, how you teach Indigenous kids, and and I think that's always going to be a problem, because I don't necessarily think the westernised system is going to work for our kids. So I think that's always going to be a problem, and because we've got so many more kids now, and so the volume is just a lot more than what it used to be. And they get less funding and less resources to be able to support them.
Do you have any solutions or answers that you think might be able to help with, like, the whole attendance thing? And
well, I know years ago there was talk around creating Aboriginal schools. And these sort of like independent schools, which have an Aboriginal education focus. But the school would be for all kids, not just for Aboriginal kids. It would be for non-Aboriginal kids as well. Sort of like sporting schools and agriculture schools and things like that. But Indigenous education focused schools where you have, you have your literacy, your compulsory components of literacy and numeracy each day. But your main focus around the rest of the days would be around key project learning and things like that, that the kids are actually interested in, and something that they can actually aspire to achieve, and make it realistic for them, because I don't think school necessarily does those things now, or schools that do it, they don't really do it well, and there's just not enough of those types of opportunities for kids to be able to do those types of learning, really focusing on the needs or the wants of the students. That's got to be key to it. And but having said that, I don't want to generalize everything. Obviously, not all Aboriginal kids, they all learn the same. They're all individuals, and you got to cater for individual needs. what's good for one Aboriginal child not necessarily good for another Aboriginal child either. So whatever basically, their individual needs are, but fundamentally Aboriginal kids have always learnt better.
Yeah.
Overall statistic tells us that they've learnt better in a different system.
I said it's been 7 years since I left the education department, and probably what I noticed in the last year before leaving was identity was starting to become. I was starting to hear more about that. Aboriginal kids or just students coming up and saying, "Look, found out this," but now, funny enough, I shouldn't say fun, but now when I talk to Aboriginal workers in the department, the identity thing is really blown up. Do you think that's because of the stolen generation and all that? Because a lot of that's starting to come out. Grandparents, granddads didn't want to, uncles and aunties didn't want to talk about it. Didn't want to, Yeah. Do you think a lot of them? Do you think identity is a big issue right now for our people?
Absolutely. Certainly started to see that a bit come on the agenda a lot more during my time in the department, and even more so now since I've left the department. And in the stories that I hear and the people that I talk to, it's still a massive issue. And you're right. I think that's a lot of it's to do with the younger generation or the younger people in particular families that see Aboriginal identity very different from the older generations. Where the young people are more willing to accept that they're Aboriginal, whereas back in the day their grandparents or their uncles and aunties may not wish to have talked about it. So I think that's changed a lot in a lot of families. That just make things a lot more complicated though for those young people that do want to embrace their Aboriginality. And so we, and certainly me in my role in the local AECG, is try to support Aboriginal people to be able, or those people to be able to seek their Aboriginality and their identity through, the appropriate channels in the community, and in a way of trying to affirm their Aboriginality. And it's really complicated. But I also think another issue is, a lot more people are just so proud that, they're Aboriginal. Like years ago, like I went to school with some people that weren't Aboriginal when we were in school, but when we left school, they were Aboriginal. They come out as Aboriginal, and I was a bit sort of shocked to find out about those sort of things, But, it's not my job to judge them on that, It's my job to, I think it's my job as an individual to be able to say, your journey is your journey, and, I have to respect that. And, just trying to understand where they're coming from, and just accept that for them and just try to help them, the best that we can. As an AECG and as a community, I think that's a role. It's not my job. I know a lot of people are very tough, on people that, just recently find out about their Aboriginality and want to, ask all the questions and really, put them through the ringer a bit, and it's complicated. Thing. It's really tricky,
It is.
I don't know the answer to that entirely, because there's a lot of talk around processes for confirmation of Aboriginality, and those sort of things. But, that's probably one part of it. But I don't think it's the whole picture, and it's really complicated.
I had a chat with somebody, I won't name him, but we actually got quite deep into that whole, I've just found out I'm Aboriginal, and, first thing that always jumps into my head, I always want to just say, "Oh, where did you find it?"
Good question.
Was it under your bed? But and it's like they seem to, they want to go for that confirmation, and it's like, this person I was talking to was older than me and quite wise in culture and beliefs and family and that, and just said, you know what, they've got to learn that. Yes, it's great that they've found out their background, but a piece of paper saying I'm Aboriginal is not going to make you Aboriginal. And as you said, it is that complicated and tricky thing, and so we got into more of a deeper discussion. I think that's when it's like, well, it's like anything, it's a lifestyle. I didn't know I was Aboriginal until white fellas started calling me black or Nabo and things like that, it's, and as if people want to know, if mainstream want to know, like even in everyday life, I forget I'm Aboriginal. It's just who we are.
Just who you are.
We don't, we don't walk around and go, I'm Aboriginal. Hey, I'm Aboriginal Rod. So for the responses that she was giving me was, it's about as you said, I think you said that earlier, it's about reconnecting. You got to find out. Okay, so you've found out you've got Aboriginal blood in you. It's like, well, if you want to be Aboriginal, it's like, it's not about trying to, do a program or do a course. It's about, it's always about family.
Yeah.
It's always about finding out where you're from, who are your people, and then connecting that way.
Yep.
And the more that you connect with family, and where you're from, then you'll start, all of a sudden you'll just know that that's just your lifestyle. And then all of a sudden you'll be like, and then someone will come up to them and go, hey, how do I become Aboriginal? It's like, and that's the thing is, I just find it a little bit weird that people are just hungry for that piece of paper. Whereas a lot of community people, like we kind of, well, I do, I don't know about yourself, but it's like, I hate that piece of paper.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want a piece of paper to say I'm Aboriginal.
Yeah, why do I need to, prove to anyone that I'm Aboriginal? Like, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, something else or something,
I remember when it first came out and Berkey, Craig, Berkey,
and
our black ears, and he was like, what, my skin not black enough?
Not black enough for you, exactly, yeah, absolutely. And but there is a big difference between those people that, seek their Aboriginality for the piece of paper, in a process, so they want to go and get something, they want to get a benefit out of that. And usually it's a bit of a monetary benefit, if they get it because they need it to go to university, or they get it to go to get a job, or something like. Then there's a a benefit, a monetary benefit that's not fair, that they have to seek that. But there's also people that genuinely find out that they're Aboriginal and excited by it, and really want to thrive and get to know more about their ancestry and get to know more about the community in which they live now. And I get excited by those sort of people, and if they're genuinely about it, they want to affirm their Aboriginality, that's great, and I'll support you any day of the week if that's what your goal is. But if your goal is they want to come to you and to get the piece of paper, so they can get a monetary benefit out of a process because of the paper, then no, I won't support you. So it's really tricky, though. It's really complicated, because I've been accused of certain things in recent years because I haven't supported people in that process. But that's I'm not going to do that. No way. It's there's a lot of integrity involved here, and we've got to uphold that integrity all the time.
And I think that's where we as community people, and you said it's not about becoming tougher, but it's about, I think we really got to start thinking about it a bit more and start going, hey, we're giving our identity away, we're giving our history away on a piece of paper. It's like, when are we gonna? And I'm glad you said that. That it's about your morals and your standards and your values, because I believe the same thing. Yeah. And I think I think it is up to us to where we've got to start saying as Aboriginal people, hey, it's not just a piece of paper. We're not looking for that piece of paper. But you guys seem to be wanting that to validate yourselves. So But I think I think we've just got to, somewhere along the line, as Aboriginal people, I think it's our issue. And I think we need to try and fix that.
That's it. It's a community issue that community needs to resolve. I think governments have too much of a bit of an input, or an influence, probably an undue influence on some of the processes. And I don't quite understand though why. Well, I don't quite understand entirely though why we're the only race of people in this country to have to prove who we are.
Never thought about that.
Why do we have to prove that we're Aboriginal?
That also reminds me of the '67 referendum. It's like, I hate that, and people go, but why? That's when you got to become Australian citizens. It's like, stuff that. Don't go putting all these people together to vote to say that I'm an Australian. Yeah. That's what I get insulted, like when I really think about it. Yeah. Like they went to mainstream to say, okay, yes, we're happy for you now to be Australian. Yeah. It's like, don't go stuff on vote. There shouldn't have been a vote. It shouldn't even be a question. No. That for me, and like I hear people say, but a lot of blackfellas fought for that, and that is great. But me personally, I feel I'd like that just to be wiped from history, and just say, well, how dare you? Like that's how I feel. How dare you? It's like, here we are now in 2021, and it's like, the thinking that we know and now understand about the past, and it's like, I don't know. I think of that 67 referendum. It's like, like, you're Aboriginal. You're Australian now.
You made it, yeah.
I was like, well, I just feel like that whole thing, I'd love to just see that wiped. And it's like, and we just go back to day one where, we're the first nation, we're the first people. Yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I kind of understand what you're saying, I think, I'm not sure where I stand on it. I never really give it a lot of thought, to be honest, around the 67 referendum, Obviously, it is a significant moment for our people in the context of, at the time, the fact that legally and legislatively we were, disadvantaged and disenfranchised, but, and it obviously changed things, for our people since then. So there's a lot of benefit that come from it. When you think about, us as a people in modern Australia, so you can't sort of deny that a bit. But I mean, it is a complicated issue in a sense too. Like, why should we have to, again, why do we have to have a question to say that, we're a part of this country, when we've been here for 60,000 years or more, and we've lived it, we've survived it, and and we're still going pretty strong. So I understand where you're coming from. Because
before that we was in a box with animals and plants.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, fauna and fauna.
Let's vote to get them out.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Look, I'm going to move on.
Yep.
Stronger, smarter.
Yeah.
As you said, you left the education department. How did you get into it? Tell me first, there's a lot of people out there, black and white, who don't know what Stronger, Smarter is. Can you give me a little background?
Yeah, so the Stronger, Smarter Institute, so it's an Indigenous education organisation. So it was started by Dr. Chris Sara.
That's him.
Now, Dr. Chris Sara, well, at the time, Chris Sara, he went and became the first Indigenous principal of Cherbourg State School. And after he left Cherbourg State School, he left so he started the Institute in 2004 and started the Strong and Smart Institute, and we've been going ever since. But while he was principal at the school, he basically came up with the slogan "Strong and Smart." So basically, strong in your heart, and strong in your identity, in your culture, and being proud of that, and smart in the sense of being able to make smart and wise decisions, and being able to match it with the best of them out in the real world. So that's sort of where it came from, and all the kids used to say that at school, we're strong and smart, and he worked with the parents in the community to really promote it, in a good light, because Cherbourg had some issues, at the time, and obviously still does, in the community, but it was a way of promoting something positive and instilling the kids a sense of pride in their identity, and saying to them, it's okay to come to school, and it's okay to be smart. Just because you're Aboriginal doesn't mean that you're not smart. And that it's and just think things like that. And so he did that while he was principal, and started the Stronger Smarter Institute, and we've been going pretty strong. So we run. In my job, I'm the program coordinator. So my job is running leadership programs with school teachers, executive principals, AEOs, AEWs, and even community people can come and do our program as well. And so it's a leadership program, so it's focused around leadership. We don't necessarily focus on Indigenous culture in a sense, but we have some elements of that throughout our program, because we look at worldview through Indigenous eyes, through Indigenous lens, to bring awareness to a lot of our non-Aboriginal teachers who come and do the training around some of our issues. But we're not a cultural awareness program, because we believe that the cultural awareness should be coming from your local community, from your local people.
So that's what I thought it was mostly. So
you're right. A lot of people think that, but it's really not. And a lot of people, after commenting when they do our program, say, I didn't realise this was so different to what I realised, what I thought it was going to be.
I thought it was just like cultural awareness.
No,
just empowering yourself.
We have a little bit of it, but not like
but I understand what you're saying.
And it's all about, it's a leadership program. So what we do is we look at a lot of strategies and processes that we get school leaders to implement in their schools. That'll lead to improvement in outcomes. And with the focus, obviously, improving Indigenous students' outcomes. But what we believe is that what we have to offer will improve the outcomes of all students,
When I was at Toronto High, there was a few non-Aboriginal staff that had done the course. So it's not just for, it's for anyone?
For anyone, yeah. Anyone, any person in school, any school leaders can come and do it. So if you're a school principal or a deputy or just a classroom teacher, well, I don't want to disrespect class. If you're a classroom teacher, AO, and we also have, community people come on board as well. So some schools actually bring community people with them and come and sit in circle with us and do the program.
How long does it go for?
We have 2 phases. The first phase is 4 days, and they're pretty long days. They usually go from about 8:30 in the morning till like 6 at night. And the second phase is a 2-day follow-up phase. So it's basically what we do in the 2 days follow-up is that we say to them, because when you walk away from phase 1, you walk away with 3 challenges, and you have to work towards meeting those challenges.
Yes.
And our phase 2 is like a bit of a follow-up. Basically, tell us on how you're going with your journey. It's not about solving your challenges. It's to just let us know how you're travelling with your journey and just seeing where you're up to. Just getting in there and having a bit of a go, trying to make change.
Do you have to be a part of the education system to get you guys to come in? Or can you be like I work for Awabakal and we're primarily a health organisation.
Yeah.
Let's say our CEO said, look, I want 30 of my staff trained in Stronger Smarter. Do you do things like that with organisations?
Yeah,
or is it mostly just the education system?
Well, mostly we've done education systems, but I know in recent years we're starting to branch out a bit now to other organisations. We've had programs with Reconciliation Australia, with the Aboriginal Hostels Australia, Australia-wide. And we do a lot of other stuff with certain organisations. Anything is possible. Let me just say that if you talk with our bosses in the institute, I'm pretty sure that they could make things happen because they're pretty keen to work with, our community and improving outcomes for our students, but also just for good quality relationships too to happen. Between people in our community is important for us as an organisation. So I think it can be possible. Yeah.
Look. Your social media, we're friends on there. So I see you get to travel around a fair bit. So your position isn't just New South Wales?
No, I get to travel across the country, yeah. So every state and territory, from big cities to little towns, and, I could, fly to some place one day, and then I think one week I was in 4 different states. So it's pretty hectic, it's pretty exhausting, but... it's great. It's lovely, because I kind of like travelling a bit, and just to get to go to all these different places where, let's be honest, I probably would never ever go. I could never really afford to be able to travel around, the country. So I get to do that as part of my job, and I get to meet all these wonderful people. These fantastic leaders. Who want to make a difference in their communities. So I've got friends all over the country. And it's just been really exciting. But it is a bit exhausting, like when I get home and I stop, if I'm having a weekend or stuff, it really hits me. It's like, oh my God, I'm exhausted, I got to get back on the road again, to keep busy and stuff. But that's what's, but it's fascinating, because I get to meet a lot of the people that, we're all come to the program for the same purpose. It's about proving educational outcomes. We sort of have a bit of a say in the institute around transformational change in Indigenous education across the country. It's sort of like our motto and what we want to achieve, and that's what we're working towards.
Do you get to go to remote communities much?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I get to go a lot of remote communities.
What's that like? What was it like at first? Is it much different to... Like, I've been down to APY lands in South Australia, and like that's remote. Was it much of, and for me it was even like a little bit of a shock experience of that coming from here. Where there's cars and it's just chaotic to going out to nothing. Was it probably less of a shock for you coming from a small country town?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it wasn't a shock as, it wasn't shock to me. But I guess when you've been in the city a bit, you probably get used to some sort of comforts and, take things for granted, some things. So some places were a bit of a eye-opener. I think it's just more so in terms of, their cultural context, how their community lives. Like some people are very, very poor, and their struggles is very real. And I just find that heartbreaking, So it's really difficult in some of those places for me to be able to, I don't know, try to put myself in their shoes and, and how they're living and, and realising that I'm just coming and going, and these people are going to be there, you know, I don't know for however long, but they're going to be there well after I'm gone. And that's why we try to make, you know, at least one part of their life a bit better in the education system, you know, a little bit better, you know, in that community while they're there. And hopefully other things as a community improves for them. But some of the places are really, really difficult. But I think one of the things that really excite me, though, is that no matter where you go, though, there's always people with smiley faces.
Oh yeah.
And they're always happy, though.
Yeah.
You know, they're not, you know, they're not depressed. Well, they're not depressed in the sense, you know, particularly to us as strangers.
What I don't have.
Yeah, what I don't have, because they only know what they know.
Yeah.
You know, they only know what's in the community for what they've always had. So, they're not missing anything.
Most beautiful place you've been to in your journeys in the remote areas?
I went to a little place called Rowland's Mission, which is about 2.5, 3 hours just south of Perth, and it's east of Bunbury, and it's a little mission, and it's very well. I wouldn't say it's really remote, but it's really hidden away in a lot of the hills, and it's like probably not as big as a lot of missions that we have over here. But it was just a really nice little cozy place, and I just found it very relaxing, and there was no phone receptions and things like that, so there was sort of in modern day, wow, that was unheard of, you know. So it was really nice to be able to. So I spent 4 days there on the program, and it was great. And I met a lot of wonderful people, people that just couldn't do enough for you while you were there. So, you know, I'm really hopeful to be able to go back there again sometime. Yeah, but it was a really nice place. I think it was called Rowland's Mission. Yeah. But I recommend if you go there and visit there, you'd like it.
So we've talked about your education. So there's something I want to chat to you before you leave.
Yeah.
I was talking about the whistle.
Yep.
I looked up the official. You're a rugby league match official. I thought there might have been more of a
fancy name.
some Greek name or something.
No.
Refereeing rugby league. How did you get in that? When did you start that, and why? You've been doing it for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, this is my 25th year.
Is it?
Yeah. But I started in '96, and but I was always interested in refereeing, even as a young boy, when I was growing up in Brewarrina. I was always interested because I think I knew very early on that I didn't have the skills to be a player, that I just wasn't gonna be able to make it, which was okay because you know, a lot of my family members, a lot of my cousins, and you know, dad and all those, and uncles and stuff, they were rugby league mad. You know, our whole family is mum and the girls as well. So. Yeah, but I knew fairly early on that I was never going to have the skills to be a good player. I did play for a little bit when I was 12. I actually played in the under-12s for Brewarrina. I only played for about half a season, and I played on the wing. I think I had touched the ball twice the whole time, and most of the other times I came off the bench. And one time I do remember when I did, I think it might have been the first time I touched the ball, fifth tackle, and I'm running back, you know, to cover at the back. And they put the big bomb up, so I'm underneath it, and I'm spinning around like this, Next minute, the ball lands in my hands, and I was like, great. And as soon as it lands in my hand, whack, got plummeted. So I didn't touch the ball much after that. But I think for me that was more of a social thing, you know, really just being out and about and busy. And but the other interesting is my pop used to referee.
Oh, okay.
And my uncle used to officially referee in the old Group 15. Out there.
Yeah.
So, and my dad actually refereed a bit as well and fill in and did some games and thing as well. So it's kind of in our blood, sort of in some ways. I don't know.
Yeah.
So when we moved to Newcastle in 95, 96, me and I think about 3-4 other guys from Cardiff High actually decided to go and do our ticket. And so we went and done our ticket, and I'm the only one left out of that group of guys. A lot of them did it for a few years and stuff like that. And then left, and a couple of guys have left and come back over the years. But I'm the only one that's been there for this whole period of time. And it's been fascinating. The game's really changed.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The game's changed a lot, and attitudes around the game have changed a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why I've decided to pretty much sort of hang up the boots at the end of this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Nothing to do with the cold.
The cold is unbelievable. It's been freezing cold these last few months. It's just been
this one has been cut. But I have to say that picture you put up on Facebook.
Yeah.
What was it, half time?
Mm-hmm.
And here you are, referee, and you're in the sheds with a blanket on.
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I just laugh so much because it's kind of funny. Like we look at referees like, yeah, bludger,
Yep.
stuffy, or, oh yeah, good call. But then you just forget. Then like, it's like you made a referee look real.
Yeah, nice.
You look at them and you think, there's the figure, and you want to just abuse them, whatever.
Yeah.
But then here's this photo of you in the shed with a blanket on.
Yeah.
And I just thought, stuff. So,
Yeah. It was
a lot of funny things like that over the years.
Oh.
What's one of the funniest things funny things? I'm sure there's been some players that have given you good reasons why they've done something on the field.
It's so funny though. When a player says something to me, I'm not that witty. I'm not that cluey straight up. I always think of something later on. I go, oh, I should have said this. I should have said that. But my latest trick at the moment is that if a player comes up to me and goes, oh, Ken, I got taken out over there, or this happened to me, my advice is like, oh, that's just bad luck.
You can't say that.
I did. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, that's unfortunate.
You know what I'd say?
Let's carry on. Let's pack the scrum now.
Where did they take you?
Yeah. Why? What would you do? No. But like a lot of guys, the attitudes into the game has really changed, and everyone wants to win.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to win at all costs, and they'll do anything they can to win. And if you don't win, you're an easy target as a referee. And the abuse is horrendous.
Ooh,
and the abuse is very nasty and very personal these days, compared to back in the day. They weren't as bad. I didn't think they were as bad, and the volume is just like, you used to be able to just might get the captain might argue with you, but now everyone wants to argue with you. Everyone on the field wants to argue with you. Everyone on the sideline wants to argue with you, and it's pretty nasty. And it's not a good feeling, And it some of the things they say really hurts.
Racial?
And I got a lot of racial stuff. Particularly in the early years was very difficult. I copped a lot of racism, and being still a teenager back then, it was really hard to deal with, And so I had to try to develop a strategy to try to get that out of my mind a bit, particularly because I loved refereeing. I loved doing it, and I wanted to do it for as long as I can, and. So my strategy was if something happened racial to me or something personal nasty, I'd get home, I'd be pretty emotional. I'd used to get me Walkman or my music device, and I'd go for a long walk, for an hour or so, and an hour and a half or something, just walk, and no matter what, if it was in the rain or whatever, just to get it out of my mind. And it usually works, and I'm usually, after that, I usually sort of not as bad and just a little bit more, I get... in better spirits than what I was when I walked in at home, and that made a bit of a difference for a while. But it still happens. Like there's no denying any of that. It still happens, but it's not as bad as it used to be, and it's not as not as much as because I've met a lot of good people in footy. I've met a lot of wonderful people in a lot of clubs. In a lot of clubs, they're very supportive of me. They look after me. They can't do enough for me some days when I'm at the ground. And one of the big thing is. My fellow referees are just amazing people. They're just amazing. They've always supported me and, been there for me, particularly our family when we've had those house fires and health issues and stuff throughout the family over the years. They've been very supportive, and, I can't thank a lot of them enough, and many of them are my closest friends, and, I'll do anything for them as well.
Something I want to ask you. Knockouts or when you're refereeing black fella teams. I just do any of them just go if they lose it? Black thing or that.
The women are the worst. the women on the sideline were the worst. Like that's like I'm not lying. They were horrible. They were horrendous. You know, they filthy mouths, some of them. And yeah, I got called up the Black Sea a lot. You know, it was like I don't know why they do it, but they did it. Yeah, it was pretty hard to take. You know, a lot of the guys on the field, like I never got anything racial from them, but they were just as bad with their comments about my decisions and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
But when I walked off the field, they were fine.
Yeah.
There was no dramas, but some of those people on the sidelines, they just want to take it further and they want to carry on with it, and they want to make a big deal out of it when it's not really, when the players don't really mind, you know.
Oh, do they? Yeah.
Yeah, that's my view, you know.
Yeah.
I've had more issues with people on the sideline than players.
Yeah.
You know, like I've had some issues with some players, like I've had to send them off and things like that, you know. Even some of my friends that I've had to send bin and send off, you know. But after the field, when we walk off the field, it's like nothing happens, you know, and that's the way it should be. Whatever happens on the field, just stay on the field in some context, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of remind me, I think it was under 13, it was under 16s cricket, but I was only 12. But my brother was playing, and when you was batting, you also had to umpire.
Yep.
And so I was umpiring, my brother was batting. And I was only 12.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
playing 16s. But, yeah, the ball hit his pad. And I think I think his leg was way away from the wicket.
Yeah.
But everyone just went, how's that? And I just went, yeah.
No hesitation, eh? Yeah.
So when you were saying like even mates or family.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well,
let's just say I heard about it for a while off my brother.
I bet you did. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, you know, I got a job to do, you know, as a referee on the field. And, you know, when I got a job to do, I give it 110%, you know, and nothing stops me, you know. And, you know, I think, you know, people come to realise that, you know, after a while, accept that you just got a job to do. And, you know, and people say, well, without referees, we wouldn't have games. And that's true too, you know, but if it wasn't for players too, we wouldn't be able to referee. Yeah. You know, so it's should be about mutual respecting each other's position, you know.
You even see it on the NRL now where it's just like, as soon as there's a try scored, like, there's about 10 players that run to the ref. It's like, like I'm even now, it's like, he knows he's going to, he's going to go to the video ref and get all, but it's like they all want to.
It's really frustrating to watch,
But I suppose, there is a lot of passion, but at the end of the day, they've still got to remember there's a job that they are. As I said, with you with that blanket, the picture of
made
you,
it real,
you just kind of go, hey, look, refs are people too.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you said, and you talking about how the effects and that, you know, people need to remember that, like, hey, yes, when they're on the field, they are a ref, and a lot of people might say, oh, well, that comes with the job. Well, no, it doesn't. No, they didn't sign up to be, and nowhere in your job description as a ref does it say, clause 2.
Yep. Cop the personal abuse. Yeah, absolutely not. You know, we've always said that, you know, and I've always said, I'll accept any decision, any criticism about my decisions. Yeah. You know, but I will not accept anything personal, any targeted, personalised, and anything racial. You know, that's against the law and it shouldn't happen. So, and you know, the incident with that blanket, you know, that was kind of a nice story. Like, I was standing there shivering before ready to start the game, or before we went out for the first half. I'm standing there shivering right near the table, and one of the club officials actually, you know, saw me. He said, come over and said, Ken, you all right? I was like, I'm just really cold. He said, I'll go and get you a blanket. I said, oh, great. So I actually had the blanket before I went out and before we started the game, and it helped me a bit, you know. And then went out and did the first half, and then grabbed the blanket again and went in the sheds and tried to keep warm. But that was a cold, wet and miserable day that day. It was a horrendous day, nobody should ever be out in that sort of conditions, you know, in any sport. Yeah, but we're not allowed to wear them. Yeah.
That's why I got with the NRL too. I see them running around in cold weather, and I think, put a jacket on.
Yeah, no. We used to... We're allowed to wear the old ones we had years ago, but our policies changed a bit, so we're not actually allowed to wear them. But hopefully that might change, and you know, particularly in really extreme conditions, and you know, because otherwise people are going to get sick. Yeah. And and it could be a big turn off too. We might continue to lose referees as we're short enough as it is trying to cover games and stuff. It's tough.
All right, brother. We're going to wrap it up. I just want to say thank you for coming in. Chatting with you, as I said, a man of, because you've been around and you've done so many things, you've travelled, your knowledge and wisdom, and having conversations which is quite broad, it's a delight. So thank you for coming in, and and enlightening me with your knowledge, and for our listeners. And I hope it all goes well for the future.
Yeah, thanks very much, brother. Much appreciated. Enjoyed the chat.
Thank you.